Vanessa here with Paradox Comedy, and today I'm going to be speaking to Ombretta Di Dio. She is a stand-up comedian here in San Diego, and I'm really excited to chat with her today. So thanks for joining us and for watching, and if you're catching the replay, thanks for doing so. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I get her on the invite here. Hi everyone. Thanks. Give me just 1 second. And if you have any questions for Ombretta while we are... Hi everyone. Thanks for joining. Just waiting for Ombretta to join. Hi Titus, good to see you. If you have any questions for Ombretta, feel free to put them in the question box or in the comments. I'm just trying to send her the invite, and she should be on here pretty shortly. And if you guys have any recommendations for comics that you want to have interviewed on here, feel free to also DM me or put them in the chat. I usually try to keep it pretty much to comics who I've seen, but also if they want to submit tape, they could do that too, just so we have something to talk about. I tend to like to know somebody's sense of humor before I talk to them. Oops, it looks like Ombretta is unable to join. Let's try this one more time. Oh, there she is. Hey, Ombretta, I'm sending you the invite if you can accept that, or if you could send me the request to join. Yay! There you are. Hey! Good to see you.
Hi.
All right. So I'm just wondering where we should get started. Tell me again, because I did forget this. How long have you been doing comedy?
So I started doing comedy in 2015, and then I took a break between 2019 and 2020, and then I go back to it after the pandemic in 2021.
Oh, okay. Well, was there anything difficult about getting back started up again?
Well, I really didn't know anybody anymore when I started back in 2021 because, there were so many new comics and I had no idea who they were and they didn't know who I was. So I was basically starting from zero. There were some who knew who I was from years prior, but yeah, it was a little bit like starting from zero, really.
What I always hear that too, like there does seem to be a pretty big turnover in the comedy scene. Like even now when I see names on flyers, I'm like, I don't know who some of these people are. And I was like going to shows weekly for almost like a year and a half. What do you think contributes to like that high turnover of comics?
So I always say that people start comedy in January because of New Year's resolution. They're like, oh, let me start this new thing. And then in the summer, because the days are longer and people want to be out of the house. But then what happens is that they get tired of it for several reasons. They might either get into a relationship and then their significant other is not cool with them being out every night at open mics, or they just get tired of it because it's very time consuming and you have to be out at these open mics, and yeah, like basically you're wasting your whole night out over 3 minutes on an open mic. So not everybody's cool with it in the long run.
Yeah, that's for sure. There's a lot to say about what you just said too, because it does take a toll on your social life, and also it's physically and like mentally exhausting because as a comic, you're going up and putting yourself on a stage, and sometimes you're bombing and sometimes you're like killing it, and so you're kind of subjecting your partner to whatever mood you come home to, I guess, if you're not able to like readily.
You have to be able to separate yourself so that whether you bombed or you did really well, you don't drag that into the rest of your night and potentially the rest of your week.
I heard Pete Holmes on an interview with like Whitney Cummings recently, and he was saying that comics are actually make the best people to date because they're constantly having to control how they feel.
Yeah, but whether they're able to control it or not, so that's another story because I don't know
Yeah.
what comics Pete Holmes hangs out with, but the ones I know, they don't really do a good job at managing all these emotions that I have. They end up in every facet of their life. I
I
mean,
know. I was
and I've
thinking
made that mistake too, by the way. It's not like I am, it's not like I don't do that.
I was thinking that because I was like, he must have, surround himself with very emotionally intelligent comics then, because and he himself is a pretty enlightened individual. He was talking a lot about meditation and therapy and stuff, but I was just like, I mean, comics definitely have the ability, but I think because you have to be so self-aware about how you're feeling about any given time, like what just happened, I just bombed. Why am I feeling like this? But I don't know. I just thought,
What just happened? Just bombed. Let me kill myself really quick.
yeah, it's just so. It just made me look at things a little bit differently. So I'm like, yeah, I guess comics have to be so emotionally, or the exact opposite, so emotionally dead, so that they can just get through it. Um, but it's also a huge time commitment too. And I know you and I talk pretty often, and you've kind of gone through some things since last time I interviewed you, like just physically going through so like a health diagnosis and how that's taken a toll on maybe showing up for those mics, or also you're pretty new in sobriety back when I first interviewed you, and now you've maintained that sobriety. So how do you find the balance between taking care of yourself emotionally, physically, and also getting out and doing what you love to do?
Well, I had to take a step back in 2023. Actually, I wasn't out as much as I was in 2022 or 2021 because I had physical issues, and basically my body was telling me, okay, now you need to stop running around and do a million things in a single day. And so really I had to pause. I feel like now finally I'm starting to regain some energy, and I have been able to go out, um, more in the past month maybe, but I still have to be very aware because I did get COVID like 4 times and now I have long COVID essentially. That's what happened. I got COVID 4 times between 20 and Christmas 2021 and Christmas 2022. And so that came with consequences. My body never jumped back, never went back to the way it used to be. I used to be um, very outgoing. I was always out, always doing a million things, and then all of a sudden my energy levels dropped, and I haven't been able to do all that like I used to anymore.
Is that frustrating at all? Do you like what do you feel when you're like, I want to be at all these things? Do you ever get FOMO when you're scrolling and you're just like,
Yeah, it's been very frustrating because mentally, I haven't changed mentally. Like mentally, I still want to be there. I still want to do all these things, but then my body tells me, I don't think so. And when I tried to push it, like for example, last week, I think I went to work, I cleaned my entire apartment, and then I drove to the comedy store in LA, because Tim, my boyfriend, was on a roast battle at the Hollywood store. And then I drove all the way back. And then the next day I was feeling still okay. And so I decided to go ice skating. And I don't know, it was all like a series of delusions where I was thinking that I was still my old self. And then I spent 2 days in bed afterwards. So I'm still learning to moderating myself. Yeah, the famous word, moderation.
yeah,
And
whatever that means.
to do like things at a different pace, because there was really a time in 2023 where I couldn't do pretty much anything. Like I would fall asleep at 8:30 p.m. every night. Now it's getting better, and but still I'm not there yet, and so I still have to pace myself. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Do you feel how do you think that that's impacted like your ability to achieve your goals in comedy or like getting booked or like
Oh yeah, it 100% impacted my ability of of getting booked. Like people probably thought that I quit or that I wasn't interested anymore. But that wasn't the case. I was like ill, literally. And so like in comedy, when people don't see your face around anymore, they just assume they are gone, that you quit because there is so much turnover and so many people come and go all the time, and the scene is very is ever changing, right, all the time. And so if you don't show your face around, even just for a few months, people literally forget who you are. And I think that's what happened to me. So my yeah, definitely I got booked way less throughout 2023 compared to 2022 or 2021 or even pre-pandemic.
has social media what's your relationship to social media as far as your
I'm
comedy?
like I'm very addicted to social media. Like I'm constantly like scrolling through my phone, trying to fill a void, I think. But uh, yeah, like I try to put myself out there on social, um, describe, I try to describe my life, what's going on with me, for better or for worse. I try to be funny, but sometimes I'm just depressing. So I do realize that. Um, but yeah, that's my relationship with social media. I'm completely like absorbed by it for some reason. I don't know.
Has your what's the feedback you get because well yeah what's the feedback you get on your social media whether because you do post clips and you get pretty like you're pretty honest and like pretty vulnerable in your and also very funny in your stories as well. What's been the feedback when you're putting yourself out there?
I have like some people whom I don't know in person. I don't even know where they're from, and I really know them only by their social media handle. But I think they've created some kind of relationship with me because they will reply to my stories in a very personal way, kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that happened to you, or are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, it's all water under the bridge. Like I'm just describing something that happened, I don't know, like 20 years ago sometimes, just because I have these memories of all this shit that happened throughout my life. And yeah, so there are definitely people that I don't know, but that follow me. Um, Maybe they think, oh, glad I'm not the only weirdo out there.
Yeah. I think that like a lot of times when we're posting stuff online that's especially you as a comic because you are able to kind of digest some of these things with a sense of humor, but like to the normal person it's pretty traumatic, right? And it's like, oh no, like I'm fine, like that's why I'm sharing it. Do you ever find like that's kind of like the disconnect or what's been like do do you think people get it when you're being like funny about stuff that's
Yeah,
happened?
not always. Like, I think there are so many times where people are like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I'm just sharing a memory. This is like, this happened so long ago. Like, it seems like another life,
Yeah.
almost. Occasionally, I did get a couple of stalkers over the years. And like, I'm a nobody when it comes to comedy. Like, I'm not famous. I'm not like, you know, popular by any means, but still sometimes I get the comedy stalker who, I don't know, starts living his own life in his head with me and then vomits his frustration in my DMs and then I have to block them. There was one a couple of years ago who was going around telling people that we were dating, that we had been dating for 2 years. And so then I had to figure out who he was and tell the clubs to not let him in if he
Oh my
was gonna show
God.
up. Yeah.
Oh my God. How'd you resolve? I mean, so he was kept out of clubs. That's kind of cool though that the clubs even like honored that and they're like, okay, we'll keep an eye out.
I was at an open mic at Main House, and the host of the open mic came up to me and told me, "Hey, I just met your boyfriend." This was in 2022, I was single at the time, and he told me, yeah, I just met your boyfriend. I'm like, what? Yeah, your boyfriend. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? The guy you've been going out for 2 years. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then we put two and two together and stuff. It was someone that I had matched with on a dating app that I had never even talked to. And then, yeah, he had made up this thing that he was dating a comic. He had been going out with this comic for a couple of years. And then I was able to put two and two together, and I just showed like this guy's face, like a screenshot of his face, so that he won't be allowed into clubs in case he showed up.
That's terrifying.
Mhm.
That's like, especially as like just, I mean, we can agree that comedy, yes, there's the opportunities for women, but it's mostly a male-dominated scene. And I know even myself going out to clubs alone, or if I'm going to like a new venue that I've never been to, I absolutely fear that because I've had people come up to me and they're great people, but you know, when you aren't like expecting someone to come up to you and be like, I know you from like the internet, it's just so startling and scary. But then you have people like that who are just like actually unhinged and like not in reality. And that's like a freaking nightmare. Do you feel like that kept you from going out there at all? Did it get put like
No,
you just didn't
I,
impact?
no, it hasn't made any difference for me.
Yeah, and it's like, ew, I for sure would just like, I just stopped engaging, or I would go with like a guy, like I would start going to shows with men. Um, they didn't always typically like, but anyhow, so what do you have any goals in mind for what you want to do in 2024? Kind of like learning what your limitations are from last year and what you want to do this year?
So I want to go out regularly again, and hopefully my body agrees with that. Like, hopefully I'm able to do that, and get booked on more shows. And hopefully, like, hey, if the Don't Tell guys are here and listening to me, I would really
Yeah.
love to be booked on your show, by the way.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, I would like to be booked on Don't Tell in 2024. Let's see if that's in the cards for me.
Yeah, I could definitely see you rocking a Don't Tell show 100%. They have such good lineups and the audiences there are so great. I think that you would definitely fit into that, into their overall vibe. They have great shows for sure. And that's something that I kind of always admired about you too, is like as a comic and knowing more of your personal life and the things that you go through, you're still always writing. Do you think comedy is something, how does comedy fit into like the overall big picture in your life?
Well, the thing is, like, I am a writer, like, right? That's what I do. That's like my job. Also, I am a writer. That's what I do as a profession. So I've always been a writer. So before I am a comic, I'm actually like a performer. Actually, before I'm a performer, I'm actually a writer. So no matter what, I'm always writing. I'm always putting things out there and writing my feelings out, really. So it's more about like getting to perform what I write and feel. Does that make sense? Like, it's kind of like the other way around. I'm a writer first and then a performer. In fact, I don't even think I'm that good of a performer. But I do think that my writing is accurate. Like, I do believe in my joke writing capabilities. Now, whether I perform them like always top notch or not, that's different. But I think the jokes are there.
For sure. And I do think that you have a great performance too, because especially, I think we talked about this last time. It's like so many comics will just rush through their jokes to like get to the punchline or to like get that hit of that. They're not okay kind of staying in like the quiet or like the silence. And your pacing and your timing is so good. Like it just cracks. I just watched one of your clips recently, or you sent me a clip recently, and I was watching that, and I was just like, this is so good, specifically because of the timing and just how you kind of let the audience participate without letting them like take over, like take control of it. Um, so
No, but you know why I do that, right? It's because when I first started doing comedy, I was going through my bits and my jokes really, really quick. And then multiple people told me, you have an accent, you have to pace yourself. Otherwise, the audience, they're not going to be able to understand what you're saying, because when you go on stage with an accent, people are not really expecting that. So it takes them just like a minute or so to get accustomed and used to what you're saying, just because it's a different way of talking and they're not used to that. And so I have to pace myself so that people get the punchlines. Otherwise, they're just gonna be like, what? What did she just say?
Yeah, Americans are not amazing with accents. They're just like, wait, what? Do you speak, is your normal tempo of speaking in like Italian pretty fast?
Yeah, I speak pretty fast in English too, and that's why people don't understand what the hell I'm saying. Like I constantly have to pace myself because the way I would actually talk is pretty fast. In Italian too, I speak very, very fast.
Uh, you would make jokes about like getting rid of your accents. Do you, if like some magical genie came down and was just like, I can get rid of that for you right
Yeah,
now.
I
Would you
would.
actually? You
Yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat. And I don't care. People say, "Oh my gosh," but it's part of who you are. It's part of your personality. No, it's not. Like I don't care. I don't care for this accent at all. I actually was working in a newsroom a few years ago. I used to be a newsroom journalist, and I was like, oh, maybe down the road in the future I could go on air, like be an actual reporter, because I was I was producing, right? I was a producer. So, or maybe like I could report down the road, and I I found this vocal coach, and I wanted to get like lessons to get rid of my accent, or at least tame it down a lot to where people will be like, there is something there, but I'm not really sure if it's an accent or what. But it was too expensive. It was like $300 an hour, and so I thought, oh my gosh, this must be because it takes a miracle to erase accents. So a miracle worker like Ellen, what's the name of that one? The miracle worker,
I don't know.
Ellen Kenner,
I don't know. Who?
Ellen Keller.
No. Oh, Helen Keller.
Yeah, that's what I need.
Yeah. Sorry, I just
Something like that to get rid of my accent. Yeah, I will absolutely get rid of it. They were like, yeah, it sounds so nice. No, it doesn't sound nice. You think it's nice because it's exotic and it's different. But from my point of view, I just sound dumb. People don't take you seriously, you know? They think that just because you have an accent, maybe your English is not so good, or maybe you're not so smart, or maybe you are bubbly because you have an accent. And I'm not bubbly at all. I'm the opposite of that.
this interview is all about Brenda letting us know she is not bubbly, you guys. Do not expect it from her. Yeah, that's true. I guess people do make a lot of assumptions about, especially your, especially because you mean you just are a very smart person, right? And you also have like a pretty dark sense of humor, and so that kind of goes against what people make the assumptions of somebody with an accent who maybe, which is kind of a dumb thing to say, like just because somebody doesn't clear, I mean, because they have an accent that they aren't able to, like, uh, do what I'm trying to do right now, which is communicate. And it's like, no, people can communicate. They're just, do you have the patience to listen to them? And like, just because it sounds different. People make a lot of dumb assumptions, I guess. A spy. Oh yeah, people may also think that you're a spy.
Oh yeah. And then they're like, oh, you're from Russia. No, like you guys don't even know what a Russian person sound like.
Yeah.
You know, I actually sound very Italian, mostly because I'm from Italy, but I have a stereotypical Italian accent. Like this that I have is a real Italian accent. And then a Russian accent sounds really different. Well, there was this movie with Lady Gaga a couple of years ago, where House of
Oh,
Gucci, and she
yeah.
plays an Italian, and so she did all these vocal coach lessons to learn an Italian accent, and then it ended up sounding Russian. Like if you watch the movie, it's actually a Russian accent, and I don't know why people confuse the Russian and Italian accent so much. They sound very different. Like when you actually listen to a real Italian accent and a real Russian accent, you're gonna be like, okay, no, sounds nothing alike. But people get
Yeah,
confused all the time.
for sure. I can see that and I actually experienced that. I'm very, and like, I mean, it comes from a place of ignorance, right? Because it's like I don't have a ton of familiarity with so many foreign languages. And so when I hear an accent, I'm like, I don't know where that's from. Like, that's very difficult. So that's interesting. Now I want to watch that and hear what the difference is. I mean, I definitely don't think it sounds Russian though. That's wild. Um, Going back to like the comedy and getting your goals and where you felt kind of like held back last year, what do you perceive and kind of getting back on track with like where you want to be in 2024? You mentioned Don't Tell, but I know last year you produced a comedy show. Do you feel like you'd probably get back into doing that this year?
I would like to produce a comedy show. I'm thinking of possible venues just because it's a good way to stay relevant and network and just like be around people that you consider funny, and that you can book. So I would definitely like to do that. And it also makes you like an active participant in the scene, like you're actually contributing to the scene rather than just passively performing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like some of the best comics too are actually also active contributors to it because they do get
Hmm.
involved, they do get the experience like behind the scenes. That's something about you as well that you've just always been very professional about how you show up for shows, how you prepare for shows, how you produce shows, and also kind of navigating the darker side of comedy, I guess, which is like the personal, interpersonal conflict and any like drama and stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I mean, I always get caught up in some kind of drama over the years. There's been like some like stupid bullshit here and there, but that's just part of it. Like you just have to you just have to basically wait for the next thing to happen, and then everybody forgets about what happened to you or what you're involved in. But I have to say, sometimes I definitely played off of it. Like I could have been a little bit more subtle, uh, especially in early sobriety, because okay, so and I know this is common, but like when I read about the stuff that I would put out in early sobriety, it's so cringy. When I say early sobriety, really, I mean like the first 3 to 6 months. So cringe. And worse than what I was putting out when I was drinking, ironically. Like
Oh
the
yeah.
first 6 months of sobriety were way worse from like an oversharing point of view and an unhinged point of view. Uh, so yeah, I definitely like did my part to get caught in gossips, I think, especially
Yeah.
in early sobriety.
And I feel like that's for anyone who goes through sobriety, that's just such a normal thing to do, I think, because either you really shut up and you don't go out and you like become a shell of a human and you don't experience anything, or you try to like purge everything that you've just gone through and experienced.
Literally unhinged. It was like my whole Instagram was like a confessional where I was just sharing the most intimate aspects of my life and the challenges that I was going through with all these strangers for no reasons. And then I was also going to meetings at the time. So then it's not like I wasn't getting my fair share of oversharing on a daily basis anyways. It's just that it was never enough. There was never enough oversharing. I could always do more.
Yeah. How does that affect any of your personal life too, either like with your family or your friends or like your partner who's also in the comedy scene?
I used to say that everything that happened to me was in between me and 15 other people, because I would just like go tell my private business to at least 15 people for some reason, and then I had to keep all these people updated too about what was going on. But now I don't know. I feel like as I became more and more sober, I mean emotionally, right? Uh, then I don't have the problem really anymore. I don't really like, I might share past experiences, things there is water under the bridge essentially, because I think it's funny or because I think it might help someone out there. But when it comes to my personal present issues, then now I only share them with like one or two people that I really trust. I don't have that oversharing with the word problem anymore. Thank God.
Yeah, for sure. I know that I mean, we've both seen other comics kind of do the same thing. Maybe not sober though. Maybe they are under the influence of something, or they are going through like real mental health issues, and they are oversharing from a place of like still that woundedness, that unhealing, right? Or maybe even still that toxicity. Um, do you feel like you could ever like come back from that in the comedy scene and like still like get booked or still like repair a reputation or something like that? I mean, you
Oh
didn't have this
yeah.
terrible experience, but
I mean, I did my fair share of, drunk performing over the years. But yeah, I think you can definitely come back. I've seen it. I've seen so many people like rise again like a phoenix, you know, and just reinvent themselves. As long as you show that you're serious and that you put in the work and you put in the effort, people are pretty forgiving, I think. And then they forget because let's be honest, people are only really concerned with their own business. Like they might gossip or they might get involved in somebody else's business when it affects them personally, but otherwise people just think about themselves. They don't care about they don't care about what goes on in other people's lives really, aside from like like maybe nothing more than a moment, then they forget.
yeah, and it's kind of just like it's just kind of like the 24-hour news cycle, right? Because it's like
Exactly.
something else is going to come up later on.
Yeah.
I know sometimes comics get really caught up, and I think that this is just part of, and not, I mean, I can identify with this as like from like the alcoholic selfishness type of mindset of like kind of being so self-involved in my own life.
Yeah, yeah. And let's be honest, like all performers have a little bit of main character syndrome, right? That's why they're performers, because they like to be in the spotlight. Otherwise, they won't be performing and be on stage and telling their whole business to the world. And so I always say we get caught up in our own bullshit. And yes, like alcoholics, like even if they're not alcoholics necessarily, right? But you get caught up in your own bullshit. You start thinking and thinking and thinking, and you get into your own head, and suddenly you overthink and you convince yourself that a certain situation is bigger than it actually is, and then turns out nobody gives
Yeah,
a fuck.
yeah, yeah, totally. And I see people kind of like get held back by that, and it's like just go live your life, do your
Yeah,
thing. Nobody is thinking about you. Yeah.
exactly.
Um, where do you feel? So you want? I keep having this one question that I keep not getting out. So you wanted to do the shows. You want to get on Don't Tell. You want to. Um, 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 I wanted to know more about growing your social media. You had a reel go viral. And do you feel like comedy in general, there are so many comics who get booked solely because of their social media following? Is this something that you think you'll kind of look at more in 2024? Or do you think that comics should step away from social media being such a big thing? Or what do you think?
I mean, I think it is what it is. Like social media is super relevant, and I mean, comedy is show business, and if you have a big following, that means you're gonna probably be able to sell tickets to whoever is following you, and that's what like show producers want, right? Like they want to sell tickets, so it makes sense in my opinion. But personally, when I had the reel go viral, it was really weird because first of all, it was completely random. Like it didn't make any sense for me why that reel went viral and the others didn't. I didn't do anything differently. And second, I kept trying to reproduce that and like, okay, maybe something else is gonna go viral, but I never achieved that same kind of success. So I was kind of like an underwhelming experience in a way because nothing really happened. I think in comedy there is so much of, and I don't know if it's the same in other kind of performance art, but in comedy there is so much of, oh my gosh, something big is about to happen, or I'm getting booked on this show that is so prestigious, and then something big is gonna happen, and then it's really underwhelming and nothing happens, and then 10 years go by, and yeah, and nothing has happened. You're still doing your shows, you're still doing your open mics, you're still hanging out with the same people. Just because so few people actually make it and are able to do that jump into like success and stardom or whatever. So
What do
there
you
is a
think?
lot of almost getting there, but then missing the train.
What do you feel like differentiates the people who quote unquote make it versus people who are still doing mics 10 years in?
I think there's like a good dose of luck, working hard for sure, but then when you actually look at individual situations, it doesn't even make it's not even necessarily true, right? So you need a lot of luck, a lot of networking. So you have to be good at networking, you have to work hard, and you need to have something that puts you aside compared to other comics. Um, and yeah, there is a code that I haven't necessarily cracked. The code
Yeah,
is like, yeah, you just put yourself out there, you network, you work hard, but then is that necessarily enough? Not really. Like you need to have something that sets you aside.
yeah. It is, it's really weird. It's like this, it's like when you're working on a Rubik's Cube and you're like trying to put it together, and it's like, I almost have this whole side together, but then like there's this thing's out of place and like that's still not set. And it's like you're just constantly trying to figure it out. Because even watching comics, I'm like, this person is so good. Why are they not further along? And then I'll see somebody who's headlining, and I'm like, this is like vanilla. So I'm so bored. I don't not understand why this person is getting the big bucks or whatever, you know. Does any of that ever kind of like breed like resentment within you, or does it like fuel you more?
Like when it comes to comedy, I'm pretty humble. Like I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, actually. Remember, I was once talking to a headliner. Um, I was talking to this one headliner, and he told me, "Oh, so what are your goals or whatever?" And I said, "Oh, it's just like I'm not that ambitious." And I was being honest, just because I'm humble when it comes specifically to comedy. And he said, "Well, then why do you do that?" And I said, "Well, because it fills me up with joy. Like it makes me happy to perform. So that's what prompts me to want to go out and perform. But whether that's good for business or not, that's another story." I don't know if I answered your question or I just went on a tangent. Um, yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like there is also, I mean, I don't really feel like there's anything wrong with that. Do you think there's something wrong with it? Where it's like sometimes you just like doing what you're doing, and it's, you like getting booked and you like doing the clubs and you like doing the shows and being part of the community. Like, not everybody wants to have, 5 Netflix specials, but would they take it if it came along? Yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I think people have to. I'm like understanding that like not everybody is necessarily wanting to be Tom Segura either. But
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I don't know if it's good to say, but I don't have that kind of aspiration because I also know my limits. I know my limits. I'm not even talking about my limits in terms of like writing skills or whatever, but like my emotional limits. Like I know that for me personally, for example, being a road comic and being on the road all the time will be devastating for my mental health. I will probably end up in a ditch somewhere. Like I don't even know if I will be able to maintain sobriety with that kind of lifestyle. Just because in order for me to maintain sobriety, I need to have a pretty structured routine, and performing can be a part of that routine. Don't get me wrong, but it needs to be a routine. Otherwise, I'm not able to stay mentally healthy enough to keep sober.
yeah, absolutely. And I feel like also when you're starting to do more of that stuff, like the stakes are a little bit higher, And like I always ask comics that, like, what if you did get hit up by, Whitney Cummings tomorrow? So like open like, and she took you on tour or something. Like, is that something you could handle? Or also, I mean, these comics get a lot of hate. Like the funniest, most likable comics get like this just a vitriol, just
Mm-hmm.
like horrible things said to them on social media, usually because nobody's saying it to their face. And it's just like I wonder, like, if comics, do you feel like comics get have a realistic expectation of like what making it big would be like if they did, and would they be able to handle it? I love that you just said that though. Like, I know my expectations or my limitations.
Yeah, I think people don't know until they are there. Everything they say, be careful what you wish for, right? Like sometimes what you really, really want is not exactly what's best for you or what you need. Um, and then life is gonna show you. So I don't know. I can't speak for other people, but for me, sometimes I have, like these dreams or these ideas of what an hypothetical future might play out like, and then it's completely different. Or if I actually find myself there. Oh, for example, when I was growing up, I had this dream of the United States, and I have this idea of America that came from music and movies and TV shows like Dawson's Creek. And then, and then I actually came, to the States, and then eventually I became an American citizen, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is nothing like what I would imagine, like what I thought it was. It's just not. Just because I was sold a different idea by pop culture essentially. And I think it's the same when it comes to success. Like you imagine the life of someone who's wildly successful might be a certain way, but then in reality, it's not like that at all, right? It's what they're showing you through TV or their podcasts or whatever. But then reality is different. So
I apologize on behalf of the United States for making
I think like people should apologize on behalf of Dawson's Creek. Like first of all, I thought all American teenagers looked 25-year old, and then
yeah.
well, like is it normal for people to sleep with their teachers in the United States like
Well,
Pacey does in Dawson's Creek? And you don't get me started. Like we're gonna go on a tangent talking about Dawson's Creek for the next 3 days.
I love the not Dawson's Creek, Seventh Heaven. That one guy who does those reels about Seventh Heaven. It's just like, what is that guy's
Oh
name?
yeah. I don't know his name. I just know it's funny. Someone's asking if I ended up in San Diego. Yes, I'm in San Diego. I'm from San Diego now.
How old were
Um,
you when you came to the States?
26 years old.
Okay,
26 years old.
and you don't have family here.
No, I don't have anyone here really like blood related. I mean, yep.
Yeah. What did your family feel like or say to you when you're like, bye, I'm going to go live my American dream?
Uh, well, I'm pretty sure my parents were devastated. They thought I was going to go back at some point, but now it's becoming increasingly clearer that I will never probably move back to Europe. Yeah, my family was pretty shook, I would say.
Yeah. Are they supportive of it now?
I mean, now it is what it is. I've been here for so many years, and they just accept it. It is what it is,
Yeah.
you know.
I never thought about that. Like, 'cause that takes quite the, like, I mean, was that scary at all when you came, or were you just like,
It was scary because I was insane at the time. Like I wasn't in my right mind at all. I mean, I was on antidepressants and drinking like a sailor on leave. And so it was not necessarily scary because I was so impulsive, but then it became scary because the first place I moved to in the United States was this small town in Virginia. It was a small college town, and I literally wanted to slash my wrist. Like it was so depressing. I wasn't used to snow. It was not like the winters were brutal, and I was from this like southern Italian town where it's basically like San Diego. It's sunny all year round, like 60 degrees in March. And so I wasn't used to it at all. It was so different. It was so small, and people didn't understand where I was from. They couldn't understand when I was speaking because they weren't used to accents, and they always thought that I was from the Middle East for some reason. They thought that I was from like Iraq or Afghanistan or Eastern Europe. Yeah. So it's definitely different.
Yeah. Yeah. That has to like that requires a certain type of like personality and like resilience in a person to like stick it out though, right? And like stay here. I know that you were also in a relationship with somebody too, but have there been times of, and I say that because that means you've also had that same grit and that same determination and resilience to continue in comedy too. I feel like some personalities are just kind of like made like that.
So in 2021, when I started doing comedy again after going on a couple of years hiatus, I I I was thinking about moving back to Europe actually. Um, and I tried, like I started applying for jobs in Europe, and then it just didn't happen. And then I decided I wanted to stay here. Um, and it's been rewarding. I mean, I think I am pretty stubborn, um, but I think I'm also realistic toward my goals. And so I could get $1 million in the face, and it's not gonna stop me from trying.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Because I don't take it personally. Like I have this book that I'm now pitched to. I don't even know how many agents, like maybe like 200 agents, maybe more. I'm probably gonna still keep pitching it to another 50,000 just because it's whatever, like whatever. If they keep rejecting it, they do, and if not, maybe one day I'm gonna have a book out, you know. But if you don't try, it's going to be a sure no, right?
Yeah.
So you can try and accept that you might get doors in the face, or you can stop trying and then you will be the one giving yourself a door in the face.
Yeah, exactly. Amen. I totally agree with that. We are just at the, and by the way, I want to, I think you sent me that book before, right? I want to read it. And that's also something that I've just always admired about you. You're like, yep, I'm just sending it. I'm like my 200th person I'm trying to send it to. I'm like, good, keep sending it. I mean, you're a great writer. So
Ah, thank you.
yeah, so it's like I know the right person. Sometimes it's timing, sometimes it's just who is looking for it at the time. Yeah. But it's definitely not for lack of skill. And I think that that resonates a lot for comedy too. A lot of people have the talents, but they're not willing to put themselves out there. And so they don't get to see the full potential of what they're capable of. So, well, I'm really proud of you for just continuing to do the thing. I think that you're so funny and you're so talented in what you do. And I don't think I've seen you perform in a while, but hopefully I'll see you soon. What do you have any shows coming up?
Yeah, I was shown Tuesday, the day after tomorrow in Chula Vista.
Did I read correctly that you're doing a roast?
Then I'm doing a roast, but that's going to be in May, so it's a way away. A roast at the Comedy Store in La Jolla, against Ashley, and that should be fun. I'm not a very good roaster. I don't like to be openly mean to people, but I'll take it. It's fine. We'll see how it goes.
I would say you're pretty good roasting privately.
Yeah, I roast privately, but then I don't have to face to actually be super mean to people in their face because I have a soft spot.
Yeah. But it's funny. I think like, as long as it's like a funny, like it gets a laugh, even from the person who you're roasting. I think
Yeah. I hope I'm not gonna end up crying. I mean, there's always a
oh
possibility.
yeah, yeah, I know. How do you feel about taking the roast? How do you think about that?
That'd be like there have been times where I've been roasted before and I didn't take it well at all. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
so we'll see.
We'll see. Maybe I'll make it out for that. That's at the maybe I'll get into the comedy store just for you.
Yeah, it's at the Comedy Store. Oh,
All right, and
thank you.
that's in May, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's in May.
Give me some time to get some therapy in. There we go. Is there anything else that we should know about you, Umbretta, before we close out?
Let's see. I think like please, I'm not Russian.
Yeah.
Please keep in mind that don't ask me if I'm from Russia because I'm not. This is what Italians look like. This is what an Italian accent sound like. and watch my stories on Instagram because there's always something crazy going on there.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time for this, and I'll just continue to follow you, and definitely will. I actually really want to go see you at the roast at the Comedy Store in May.
Thank
So,
you for having me.
yeah, of course. Thank you everyone for joining, and yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Ciao.
Bye.